GDPR. Now, if you haven't heard of GDPR yet, then you clearly have been avoiding all of your emails that have been coming through to you from any mailing list that you might subscribe to. GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation, which is coming into effect here very shortly in Europe, and this affects everybody that does business within or with the European Union. Now, if you are following any of these online discussions, there are loads of consultants that are jumping up and down trying to make it more and more complicated than it actually is. But what I've decided to do is we're going to break this into two parts. I want to talk about what GDPR is and why it's important, but then I want to talk about how that affects TDW and you, and then I want to talk in part two about how GDPR will affect us in technical publications. Now, here is the catch, guys. You have to watch this video to get access to the second video, and at the end I will tell you why that is very important. So please stick around. I'll try not to bore you and try and make this as interesting as possible and give you the reasons for why we are having to act the way that we're having to act here at TDW. So GDPR, as I've said, stands for the General Data Protection Regulations, which come into effect here towards the end of May within the European Union. Now, this means a number of different things, and this has come around because technology has moved on so fast, and the way that data is tracked and stored and analyzed and used has moved on. The data protection regulations in Europe have not moved at the same pace. In fact, I read somewhere that they haven't been updated since the 1990s. So they have decided that they're going to update these regulations, and we are all going to have to conform to them. So what is the fuss all about? Well, I started reading all of the FUD that was being kicked around by these consultants, and then I actually found a very, very short, succinct video on YouTube from a young lady who's running her own social media company, and she gave a fantastic short overview of this particular regulation. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the regulation because A, I'm not a legal expert, and B, there are loads of people that have done it already. I'm just going to talk about what we're doing here at TDW and how it affects you. Anyway, GDPR means that we as organizations and you as organizations need to have safeguards in place for your customers, or for anybody that, or suppliers as well, is something that's called out by the regulation. Any information that you store or track about your customers, suppliers, users, anything along those lines, you need to demonstrate a number of different things. Now, if you are one of those organizations that you scrape newsletters and you scrape LinkedIn for email addresses and you scrape the internet for email addresses, this is something that's going to stop you from doing that kind of thing. And that's because now, under these new GDPR regulations, you need to demonstrate that everybody that's on your mailing list has consented to be on that mailing list, has consented to how you will use their information. Now, if you watch any of the major sporting events here in the UK, there's been loads of advertising and banners and that kind of stuff saying everybody now needs to re-opt in to their mailing list. We get phone calls every day at the moment asking if we want to be kept onto an organization's database, whether they can still send us information. The regulation is clear. You need to have jargon-free, clear and concise policy statements that say what you do with people's information. Now, here at TDW, we do not share anybody's contact details or anything along those lines. But we do have here at TDW a massive database. We have a huge database. 25 years of working in this sector, I've got to meet a lot of people and support a lot of organizations. So what does that mean? Well, the crux of the problem with these new GDPR regulations is if you have a huge database like we do here at TDW, you still have to be able to demonstrate to the regulators that those people within your database have actually still consented under the new regulations to be in your database, and the data that you have about them is used as you say it's going to be used, and you're clear and jargon free about how that information is going to be used. So what does this mean for us here at TDW? Well, we've had lots of meetings and discussions with experts around this and what we should be doing, and I started watching what other organizations are doing, and most marketeers now are saying, look, let's take this as an opportunity to reboot our mailing list. And I thought more and more about this. We have thousands of people in our database, and what I want to do is I don't want to fall foul. I don't want to have TDW fall foul of these regulations, because you can get fined up to 20 million euros if you do not conform and comply to these new regulations. And the early indications is that the European Union are going to enforce these regulations and rules. So we have already at TDW placed online our policies about what we do with your information. We track email addresses, names, sometimes companies, and if you are a magazine subscriber, we have your postal address. All of our policies are now on our website. But why is this important now? At TDW, I took the decision, along with most major organizations now, to reboot our database. So if you want to continue to receive notifications about our content, our courses, our events, anything that we're doing at TDW, regardless if you've signed up to our newsletter recently, and I know that we've had quite a couple of hundred of you have done that, I'm asking you to re-sign up to our newsletter. This will now go into a special newsletter category which will say GDPR compliant, because GDPR says that you have to have double opt-in for the newsletter. That means when you sign up now, there's a checkbox that says you agree by our terms and conditions, and there's a link to our terms and conditions, and then you get an email from us saying yes, please click here to confirm. So for you to continue to get and receive our content, I need you to re-sign up to our newsletters. So after the 25th of May, if you haven't signed up or re-signed up to our newsletters and you're receiving nothing from us, that will be why. Because at the 25th of May, if you haven't re-signed up, your email address will be deleted from our system. You will have, under the new GDPR regulations, you have the right to be forgotten. Anybody can contact an organization and say, you will A, disclose the information you have about me, and B, you will delete it. So I've taken the decision that if you have not re-signed up to our newsletter by the 25th of May, you will be deleted from our system. And there's nothing more that, we do not want to fall foul of these regulations. So I'm asking you, as a fellow TD professional, if you are interested and you like what we do here at TDW, please do sign back up to our newsletter. And again, even if you signed up yesterday, I need you to redo it now. So that's part one. That's why we're doing it, and that's how we're doing it. Now, part two, I'm going to talk about how it's going to affect technical publications. But in order to know when part 2 becomes available, you need to re-sign up to our newsletter and agree to receive our notifications. And 100% transparency. We do not share, we do not sell, we do not disclose anybody's contact details other than for TDW purposes. Another interesting fact that's come out of the GDPR regulations is if you go to a conference and they give you an attendee list, you have to demonstrate that everybody on that list signed up under the GDPR regulations. So no more just taking lists and being able to contact people. You have to demonstrate that they agreed to be on that list and they agreed to be contacted. And again, the fines for GDPR and non-compliance are absolutely huge. So that's what we're doing around GDPR. Not my normal kind of fun tutorial, I'm sorry about that, but this is really quite vitally important. And I hope that you take the time to re-sign up to our newsletter and you continue to receive our notifications. Again, if you don't, then we will be removing you the 25th of May from our systems. You will be gone and you will need to re-sign up at some point. Anyway, in part 2, I'm going to talk about technical publications and the GDPR regulations and how that affects everyone, and speak to you in part 2.